the Great American Automotive Paradox. In late 2008, the CEOs of General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler pulled up to the Senate building in Washington, D.C. They'd driven 500 miles from Detroit in their company's newest, most fuel-efficient hybrid cars. Just a month prior, they'd arrived in private jets to beg for a bailout, and the optics had been disastrous. This time, they came with an apology. "We're here today because we made mistakes," GM's Rick Wagner told the Senate Banking Committee. "We're sorry to be asking for this support." The Big Three, a term that once defined global automotive dominance, were failing in the country they helped build. How did the architects of post-war American culture find themselves at the mercy of Congress? The seeds of decline. The downfall was not sudden. In the mid-century, American cars were big, loud, and dirty. But the 1960s brought an era of necessary regulation, emission standards that killed the muscle car, and safety mandates like seatbelts. This forced a massive change across the industry, an upheaval that cleared the way for new competitors. The biggest threat was Japan. Starting in 1958 with the Toyota Crown, Japanese manufacturers like Honda, Nissan, and Mazda moved into the U.S. market. Their timing was perfect. As Americans faced two severe oil crises in the 1970s, the smaller, lighter, and more fuel-efficient Japanese vehicles became incredibly attractive. By 1980, Japanese car exports to the U.S. had more than tripled. The Big Three could have pivoted then. They could have embraced smaller cars and acknowledged the risk of volatile fuel prices. Instead, they focused their energy, partially driven by government incentives, on trucks and sport utility vehicles, SUVs. This strategic choice ceded the entire passenger car market to their foreign rivals. By 2006, every single car on Consumer Reports' list of the 10 best was Japanese. Compounding the problem, the American companies relied on costly domestic labor, with pensions and health care making up roughly 8% of a car's price. When the 2000s brought yet another oil crisis, Americans once again looked for affordable, efficient cars, and once again, they found them in Japan. A plea for survival. Then came the Great Recession, triggered by the subprime mortgage crisis. Though it seemed distinct, car sales were tied directly to it. 24% of 2006 auto sales were financed by home equity lines of credit. When people started defaulting on their homes, they missed car payments and stopped spending. Panic gripped the Big Three. They told Congress, "Our failure is not just Detroit's problem, it's America's." The crumbling of this industry would ripple through every sector of the American economy. They'd already burned through $18 billion in credit lines. Though initial votes failed, President Bush eventually bypassed the legislative branch and approved a massive bailout. The bailouts forced brutal, necessary change. GM filed for bankruptcy, shedding brands like Hummer, Saturn, and Pontiac, cutting a third of its U.S. employees, and vowing to build the cheaper, fuel-efficient cars of the future. Ford, which narrowly escaped a federal bailout, sold off luxury brands and poured its resources into models like the Fusion and Focus. The message was clear. America's auto giants had been punished for clinging to the past and were finally embracing the future of small, green, economical cars. Or so it seemed. The SUV loophole. Just 10 years later, Ford, once hailed as the proactive survivor, made a stunning announcement. It was getting out of the business of manufacturing or selling any passenger cars in the American market beyond the Mustang. No more Fusions, Fiestas, or Focuses. Chrysler and GM followed suit. Within a decade of nearly bleeding out for a lack of small economical cars, the Big Three had all but stopped making them entirely. They announced they were focusing once again on SUVs and trucks. The official reason? Insatiable demand. But that demand is arguably artificial, rooted in a quirk of 1970s legislation, the SUV loophole. When the U.S. government mandated better fuel efficiency, CAFE standards, it had to define what a passenger car was. Anything that met the loose criteria of a light truck, 6,000 lbs or less, designed to transport property or for off-road use, was given a lower required fuel efficiency standard. This simple difference gave domestic manufacturers an enormous advantage, creating a massive incentive to market and build SUVs and light trucks over sedans. Add the 1964 chicken tax, a 25% retaliatory tariff on trucks manufactured abroad. and the financial choice became undeniable. The profit margins on trucks and SUVs are simply better, with little additional labor cost compared to sedans. Detroit executives talk about demand, but their aggressive, decades-long marketing, pitching trucks and SUVs as safer, more capable and essential for all Americans, is what created that demand. A question of trust. Today, the big three only comprise 40% of the U.S. auto industry. And it's not just market share they've lost, it's trust. In recent years, Chrysler, Ford, and GM have consistently ranked among the top for vehicle recalls. In 2025, no Detroit brand cracked the top 10 in Consumer Reports' auto reliability rankings. We've seen reputational black eyes like the multi-billion-dollar emissions testing scandal involving certain Jeeps and Ram trucks, and the years-long saga of catastrophic engine failure in GM's massive V8s, resulting in recalls, crashes, and fires, suggests a disturbing lack of urgency and quality control. The latest short-sighted strategy, epitomized by groups like Stellantis, the new merger partner for Chrysler, is to prioritize record profits, massive shareholder payouts, and CEO compensation over product quality and factory workers. This approach provides a short-term boost but guarantees a struggle to innovate and maintain quality. Meanwhile, a new American auto industry is rising: Tesla and Rivian. Built from the ground up around electric vehicles, they don't have to deal with the unions, retrofitting assembly plants, or decades-old business models that shackle the big three. Even in their historical comfort zone, light trucks, the walls are closing in. The #1 selling vehicle in the U.S. in 2024 was a light truck assembled in America, but for the first time in decades, the big three survived the recession. But they did so by doubling down on an outdated, legally advantaged business model that sacrifices long-term innovation and quality for short-term profit. Now, as the world pivots to the electric future, and as consumer trust in American reliability continues to erode, the question remains: when a company chooses profit over progress, does it ultimately risk losing both?